the leisure elegance of the Foggy City. Afternoon tea in a 19th century London middle-class family. At this moment, you stand by the floor-to-ceiling window of your drawing room, your fingertips brushing the cool glass covered in a faint mist. An ethereal mix of London's afternoon dampness and smoke drifting from distant factories. Beyond the pane lies London in 1852, where this middle-class neighborhood has not yet been fully swallowed by the thick smoke of the Industrial Revolution. The courtyard lawn still holds the dampness of recent rain. A few roses sway gently in the breeze, and the clear, melodious chirping of sparrows echoes softly against the deep rumble of distant steam locomotives. One soft, one deep, they paint the unique soundscape of a changing era. The brass wall clock has just struck 2:30, its pendulum ticking steadily like a countdown to the coming ritual, a reminder that afternoon tea preparations have entered their final stage. As the mistress of the house, this weekly Wednesday tea is far more than a simple treat. It is a vital ceremony to build your social network, show the dignity of your middle-class status, and hold onto family warmth and comfort amid the turbulent waves of rapid change. Not a single detail can be overlooked. You turn around, your gaze sweeping slowly over every corner of the drawing room for a final, careful check. This space is the heart of your home, a vivid symbol of the middle class's dignity and status. Every carefully chosen piece of furniture speaks to your pursuit of a refined life. A Persian wool carpet, which traveled a long way, covers the floor, its detailed vine and floral patterns spreading gently in the soft afternoon light. Its thick plush pile mutes all sound beneath your feet. Though less decorative than the gold-threaded carpets of noble manners, it cost you 3 months' salary, selected after repeated comparisons at an Oriental goods store in central London. To put its value in perspective, it could support a skilled factory worker and his family for 2 to 3 months, or keep him working non-stop for half a year. At the center of the carpet stands a mahogany round table, its surface polished daily by servants until it shimmers, reflecting the outline of the wall oil painting and the view outside the window. That painting, a generous wedding gift from your father, shows a lively spring scene of an English country estate. Lush green meadows, a gurgling stream, and sheep wandering slowly. It stands in sharp contrast to the foggy, machine-roaring industrial city outside, quietly holding your nostalgia and sadness for the peaceful rural life of the past. 4 soft cream velvet armchairs stand on either side of the round table, their armrests bearing faint signs of wear, marks left by years of frequent use, by elbows resting and shifting, carrying the warmth of time. You step forward, gently smoothing the creases in the upholstery from long periods of sitting. Through the soft velvet, your fingertips can clearly feel the solid, neat wooden frame underneath. Handcrafted work that grows more precious in an age of mass machine production. Against the wall stands a tall walnut bookshelf, with delicate, detailed carvings and brass hinges that make a soft creak when opened or closed. Inside, books are arranged neatly. Collections of Shakespeare's plays, Dickens' latest novels, Latin classics, and scientific works. On the top shelf lie several thick travel books about overseas colonies, brought back by your husband when he returned from India. Their spines still have a light dusting of exotic soil. A few small oriental porcelain ornaments are displayed on the bookshelf, their blue and white patterns glowing warmly in the afternoon light, each stroke showing the skill of Eastern craftsmen. These are curiosities coming into London with colonial trade, silent symbols that middle-class families used to show their aesthetic taste and financial strength. Madam, the tea set has been polished. Shall I place it now? Alice's voice comes from the doorway, soft and laced with cautious deference. You look up to see the young maid in a faded gray uniform, a neat white apron around her neck, her hair pulled tightly back into a bun secured with a simple wooden pin. Her hands are clasped in front of her back straight, yet unease and restraint linger in her eyes. 18 years old, Alice hails from a village in southern England, her parents both textile mill workers. Half a year ago, when farmland in her hometown was seized by factories, she had no choice but to leave home and come to London, recommended by the parish priest. Her monthly wage of 5 shillings is mostly sent back to her family in the countryside, to buy medicine for her ailing mother, to support her younger siblings, leaving barely enough for herself to live on meager rations of coarse bread and cheap tea. You nod gently, your gaze falling on the red sandalwood tray she carries. On the tray is your most cherished bone china set, a custom piece from the famous Wedgwood factory. It was a gift from your husband to celebrate his promotion to factory manager. More beautiful than the regular models sold on the market, the creamy porcelain is decorated with delicate light blue interlocking lotus patterns, its rim and base edged with a thin gold line that shimmers in the light. When you tap the cup lightly with your fingertip, it makes a clear, melodious sound that lingers in the air. In 19th century London, bone china tea sets were a must for middle-class families, less showy than noble silver sets, but more elegant and gentle than ordinary earthenware. They perfectly express the middle class's desire to show their status without being too flashy. Alice carries the tray steadily, her steps light as she approaches the round table. She places the teapot, cups, and saucers one by one with great care, as if handling fragile treasures. She knows better than anyone that a single chip or crack in this set would cost her years of wages to repay, a burden she could never bear. Has the Indian Darjeeling in the tin been brewed? You ask softly, your gaze lingering on the tea set. Remember, the water must be just boiling. Steep it for 3 minutes any longer and it will turn bitter. Any shorter, and the aroma won't come out fully. This Darjeeling is a high-quality batch, obtained by your husband through a friend at the Colonial Company. It is packed in a tin with gold patterns to keep it fresh. In London at that time, such tea was very expensive, a luxury that middle-class families could only afford on holidays or for important guests. On ordinary days, most people made do with plain local black tea. This tea came from Indian plantations, picked, dried, roasted, then crossed the Atlantic by ship, unloaded at London's River Thames docks, and delivered to shops and homes by merchants. Every step of its journey is filled with the labor of colonial workers. It is a vivid example of Britain's overseas expansion and plunder of colonial resources after the Industrial Revolution. Though you enjoy the rich, mellow aroma of the tea, you often think of the colonial atrocities your husband mentioned casually late at night. A complex feeling stirs in you. You rely on the privileges brought by colonial profits, yet you feel quiet unease about the suffering in those distant lands. Like a thin thorn, it pricks your conscience from time to time. Alice responds respectfully, "Yes, madam," then turns and hurries to the kitchen to assist, her gray skirt swishing softly as she goes, her figure hurrying away. You stroll to the fireplace, where embers still flicker gently, casting a warm glow across the room. On the wooden mantelpiece rest a few small bronze ornaments, souvenirs your husband brought back from Egypt. Above the fireplace hangs a gilded mirror, its frame carved with intricate scrollwork, its surface polished until it reflects every detail clearly. You smooth your dress in the mirror. Deep green silk shimmers softly in the firelight, its neckline and cuffs trimmed with exquisitely crafted white lace, each stitch the work of a master tailor. A wide ribbon around your waist cinches your figure into a slender curve. This is the height of fashion for middle-class women in London, though the corset beneath constricts your breathing, making every deep inhale a struggle. Yet for the sake of elegance, you endure the discomfort. You run your fingers over the skirt's fabric, feeling its silky smoothness. This bolt of silk came from faraway China, exported through the port of Guangzhou, crossing mountains and seas to reach London. Far more expensive than locally produced cotton, it is a tangible symbol of your status and taste. From the kitchen comes the soft clink of utensils, crisp and rhythmic, the sound of Martha, the cook, bustling about preparing afternoon tea pastries. Martha has worked in your household for 10 years, growing from a young apprentice into a skilled cook with a cheerful, straightforward temperament. She knows every trivial detail of the family, even better than you the preferences of your two children, having long become like a member of the family. Hailing from a Scottish village, she was forced to leave home and come to London to make a living when famine struck her hometown, securing her place in your household with her exceptional culinary skills. You follow the sound to the kitchen door. Though not spacious, the kitchen is kept spotlessly clean by Martha. Copper utensils and glassware line the corner cabinets, catching the light streaming through the small window, glinting brightly. On one shelf of the cabinet sits a jar of sugar, its crystal grains glistening temptingly in the light. This sugar comes from plantations in the Caribbean, grown, pressed, and refined by enslaved Africans, an indispensable ingredient in afternoon tea pastries, and one of the cruelest symbols of trade in that era. Every grain of sugar is steeped in the blood and tears of enslaved people. Martha stands at a heavy wooden workbench, kneading dough, a thin layer of flour sprinkled on the surface to prevent sticking. Her arms, strengthened by years of labor, move with skill and rhythm, the dough growing smooth and elastic beneath her hands. When she sees you enter, she pauses, wiping the sweat from her brow with her sleeve, a warm smile spreading across her face. "Madam, you're here," she says, her tone natural and warm, free of the deference of a servant. "The scone dough has been proving for an hour, perfectly risen. It'll go into the oven soon, crisp on the outside, soft on the inside, just as you like. And your favorite finger sandwiches. I minced this morning's fresh chicken breast, seasoned it with a touch of butter, and paired it with crisp cucumber from the hothouse. I've trimmed the crusts off the bread and cut them into neat strips, ensuring a delicate, smooth texture." You step closer, glancing at the neatly arranged ingredients on the workbench. Fresh farm eggs, a jar of rich butter Thomas bought that morning, prime chicken breast reserved by the butcher, and emerald cucumbers, a rare luxury before spring. Such treats were only affordable for nobles and wealthy middle-class families, a mark of advanced hothouse gardening and wealth's power. Martha picks up the risen dough, skillfully rolls it into balls and flattens them, placing the scones on an oiled baking tray. "Madam," she murmurs, brows furrowed as she works. "Thomas said the Eastern Textile Mill is on strike again. Workers clashed with guards demanding higher wages and shorter hours. Someone got hurt. Her brother toils there, working 12-hour days in harsh conditions for little pay, and fear for him weighs heavily on her." Your heart tightens, fingers brushing the workbench unconsciously. The Industrial Revolution boosted productivity drastically. Steam machines replaced manual labor, factories multiplied, and cities expanded rapidly. But prosperity masked the working class's agony. They lived in squalid slums, endured grueling days, barely survived, and faced constant threat of disease and unemployment. Even your husband's factory, which offered slightly better terms, wasn't spared strikes. Last week, he stayed up late torn between new steam looms, 3 times more efficient but set to lay off half the workers, and the families relying on those jobs, a common dilemma for factory owners then. You pat Martha's shoulder gently. "Don't worry too much. I hope your brother is safe." Yet you know industrial progress will only deepen such conflicts, like an impending storm. As you leave the kitchen, Thomas, the manservant, enters through the back door carrying a bundle of firewood, neatly tied and heavy enough to make his shoulders sag slightly. Dressed in a gray uniform, its collar and cuffs faded from frequent washing, he wears obvious exhaustion on his face, beads of sweat dotting his forehead, sliding down his cheeks to soak his collar. 25 years old, Thomas is the only manservant in the household, tasked with all the heavy labor, daily shopping, hauling goods, trimming the garden, adding firewood to the fireplace. His monthly wage of 8 shillings is higher than Alice's, but far more grueling. He toils from dawn till dusk, rarely getting a moment's rest. When he sees you, he stops immediately, carefully leaning the firewood against the wall, bowing respectfully. "Madam, the guests should be arriving soon. I've prepared the carriage and will wait at the door to greet them promptly." he says, his voice hoarse from days of overwork. You nod, turning back to the drawing room to make the final arrangements. You take a delicately bound collection of Shelley's poems from the bookshelf, its pages edged with a faint yellow from frequent reading, placing it gently on the corner of the round table to add a touch of literary charm to the afternoon tea. Then you pick a few fresh roses from the vase by the fireplace, cultivated with care in the courtyard, their petals plump and bright, though not as rare as hothouse varieties. They carry the fresh fragrance and vitality of nature. You arrange the roses in a white porcelain vase, placing it at the center of the round table, where it complements the bone china tea set, exuding elegance and warmth. At that moment, the brass wall clock strikes again, 3 deep, steady chimes. From afar comes the clear clatter of horse hooves and the rumble of wheels on cobblestones, growing louder until it stops firmly at the door. Soon, Thomas's voice echoes from the entrance, clear and respectful. Madam, Mr. and Mrs. Webb have arrived. You quickly smooth your skirt, straightening any creases, and hurry to the door to greet them. Mr. Webb is your husband's colleague, chief engineer at another machinery factory, highly regarded for his exquisite skills. Reserved and mild-mannered, he speaks little but always to the point. Mrs. Webb is your dearest friend, having known each other since childhood. Even after marriage, you often attend social events together, go to church in pairs, your bond as strong as ever. Mr. Webb wears a crisp black tailcoat, a neatly tied cravat around his white shirt collar, holding a black top hat polished to a shine in his hand. A warm smile graces his face, his eyes reflecting the precision of an engineer. Mrs. Webb is dressed in a pale pink dress, embroidered with tiny white flowers, a white feather adorning her bonnet, swaying gently as she moves, adding a touch of liveliness. She carries a delicate leather handbag, its brass clasp glinting in the light. When she sees you, she hurries forward, taking your hands tightly in hers, her fingertips cool against your skin. My dear, you look absolutely lovely, Mrs. Webb says, her voice soft and eager, her eyes admiring your dress. This deep green silk suits you perfectly, and the lace on the neckline is exquisitely crafted. Your drawing room is more elegant than ever, especially this Persian carpet, glowing with a warmer luster than when I visited last time. You must tend to it with great care every day. Thank you, you reply with a smile, patting her hand gently and leading them to the armchairs in the drawing room. Alice, already waiting by the table with the teapot, pours hot tea for the guests deftly. The boiling water flows into the bone china cups, creating a thin layer of foam, and a faint aroma drifts forth. A blend of the fruity and caramel notes unique to Darjeeling, warm and mellow, chasing away the afternoon chill. Mr. Webb lifts his cup, his fingertips brushing the interlocking lotus patterns on the rim, then takes a small sip. His eyes light up with approval as he says slowly, "This tea is of exceptional quality, rich in flavor, lingering in aroma. It must be premium Darjeeling from India. I met a friend back from the colonies last week who said the Darjeeling harvest was good this year, but storms during the ocean voyage caused more losses than usual. It's truly a rarity to get such fine tea." "It is indeed," you reply with a smile, lifting your own cup and blowing gently on the foam. "My husband had it reserved specially through a friend at the Colonial Company. Speaking of colonies, have you heard any news from your friend lately? My husband is so busy with the factory that he rarely tells me much about what's happening there." Mr. Webb sets down his cup, a hint of quiet pride in his tone as he leans forward slightly. "As a matter of fact, my friend holds an administrative position in the colonial government in India, so he's well informed. He says Britain has occupied a new territory in northwestern India. Its soil is extremely fertile, perfect for growing cotton, yielding several times more than existing plantations. If we can introduce that cotton to domestic factories, it will drastically reduce production costs and expand our scale further. However, the local natives are restless, often gathering to resist our rule, burning plantations, attacking colonial officials. but they are no match for our well-equipped British troops. Every uprising is brutally suppressed in the end. Mrs. Webb frowned slightly, a look of compassion crossing her face as she shakes her head gently. I can't help but feel sorry for them. They've lived on that land for generations, only to have their homes taken away, forced to toil for us under harsh exploitation. Rebellion is only natural. When I went to church last week, the priest spoke about the sins of colonialism in his sermon, saying that the prosperity we enjoy is built on the suffering of others, urging us to do more good deeds to atone for our sins. Their opposing views cast a subtle tension over the room, a silent strain in the air. You quickly intervene to diffuse the mood, gesturing to the tea set with a smile. Let's set aside these heavy topics. We shouldn't let them ruin our afternoon tea. Martha has prepared a variety of pastries today, all your favorites. Please try them and tell me what you think. As soon as you finish speaking, Martha enters with a large wooden tray, covered with a clean white cloth. When she lifts the cloth, a rich aroma bursts forth. An array of pastries arranged neatly, their colors tempting, making one's mouth water. Most prominent are the freshly baked scones, their golden crusts glistening with oil, slightly puffed at the edges, emitting a strong aroma of butter and flour, with a faint hint of charred sweetness. Beside the scones are two small jars, one filled with smooth clotted cream, made by Martha herself from fresh milk, rich and creamy. The other with strawberry jam, boiled from fresh strawberries picked in the courtyard last summer, sweet and sour, with no excessive sugar added, preserving the natural flavor of the fruit. Next to the scones are delicate finger sandwiches, cut into uniform thin strips, their crust soft and fluffy, filled with tender minced chicken breast and crisp cucumber strips. Layered flavors, refreshing and not greasy. Also on the tray are several tiny fruit tarts, their crisp pastry bases topped with plump, juicy blueberries and raspberries, drizzled with a thin layer of homemade syrup, looking exquisite and delicious. In the corner of the tray lie a few pieces of chocolate cake, their dark brown layers dotted with a little cream. The chocolate, imported from South America, is an extremely expensive ingredient, prepared only for distinguished guests. It melts in the mouth, its rich aroma lingering. Mrs. Webb is the first to pick up a scone, spooning a little clotted cream onto it, spreading it evenly, then adding a thin layer of strawberry jam. Her movements elegant and gentle. She takes a small bite, and the scone's crispness blends with the cream's smoothness, and the jam's sweetness and sourness on her tongue. Her eyes light up with satisfaction as she praises repeatedly. Martha's skills are getting better and better. These scones are crisp outside and soft inside, absolutely delicious, better than those from London's most famous pastry shops. I must ask her to teach me how to make them later. Mr. Webb picks up a piece of chocolate cake, savoring it slowly, a look of emotion crossing his face. Life is getting better and better. 10 years ago, such chocolate cake was a luxury only nobles could afford. Us middle-class families could barely dream of it. All this is thanks to the Industrial Revolution. Steam-powered machines have greatly increased productivity, and colonial trade has brought products from all over the world to London. We middle-class families can now enjoy things we never dared to imagine before. That may be true, but the Industrial Revolution has also brought many troubles and hidden dangers. You say, taking a small sip of tea, your tone laced with worry. My husband has been troubled by the factory lately. The new steam-powered looms have arrived, and once they are installed, tested, and put into use, many workers will be laid off. Most of those workers have elderly parents and young children to support. Losing their jobs means losing their means of survival, and I don't know how they'll get by. Moreover, strikes are becoming more and more frequent. There was a fierce clash at the textile mill to the east yesterday. I heard some workers were seriously injured by the guards. It's really worrying. Mr. Webb's expression turns serious as he sets down his cake, saying slowly, "There's no other way. As the times progress, outdated production methods are doomed to be eliminated. Our factory is facing the same problem. Workers are constantly demanding higher wages and shorter hours, but the factory's profits are limited. If we blindly meet their demands, the factory will struggle to survive, eventually closing down, and everyone will be out of work. In the end, there are simply too many working-class people, and the labor market is too competitive. Even if they are dissatisfied, they have no choice but to accept the reality. A silence falls over the group, broken only by the ticking of the brass clock and the soft clink of teacups against saucers. The atmosphere grows dull and oppressive. Sensing this, Mrs. Webb quickly changes the subject, a smile returning to her face. "By the way, my dear, how are little Elizabeth and William? The last time I saw them in Hyde Park, Elizabeth could walk on her own already, wearing a pink dress, like a lovely little angel, so charming." At the mention of the children, the worry fades from your face, replaced by a gentle smile, your tone lightening. "They're doing well, growing taller every day. Elizabeth has recently become obsessed with painting, spending every day drawing with her brushes. Flowers, birds in the courtyard, the servants at home. Her strokes are childish, but full of innocence and charm. I've had her paintings framed carefully and hung in the staircase. William is fascinated by mechanical toys. His father bought him a miniature steam locomotive, exquisitely made, even able to move forward with steam power. He can't put it down, running around the courtyard with it every day, muttering that he wants to be an engineer when he grows up, just like his father, managing factories and building machines. What an ambitious boy, Mr. Webb says, nodding approvingly. This is a time of vigorous industrial revolution, and society is in urgent need of more engineers and technical talents. As long as William studies hard, he will surely achieve great things in the future, perhaps even invent more advanced machines, contributing to the country's development. I hope so, you say with a smile, your tone a mix of hope and worry. But more than anything, I want them to grow up safe and happy. The times are changing so fast. The Industrial Revolution has brought prosperity, but also countless conflicts and upheavals, worker strikes, colonial rebellions. I can't help but fear that they will face too many challenges and hardships in the future. You think of the recent newspaper reports about worker strikes and colonial uprisings, a sense of unease weighing on your heart. For middle-class children, unlike the children of working-class families who are forced to work in factories from an early age to make a living, they must receive a strict education from childhood, learning etiquette, languages, mathematics, science, and art, to prepare for entering high society or taking up decent jobs. There is no room for slacking off. Their childhood is filled with heavy expectations and rigorous training. Just then Alice enters quietly, stepping beside you and whispering softly, "Madam, sir is back." At the sound of your husband's name, joy surges within you, and you hurry to greet him. Dressed in a dark suit, still dusted with grime from the factory, he wears obvious exhaustion on his face, dark circles under his eyes, evidently having been busy all day, rushing back from the factory. When he sees Mr. and Mrs. Webb in the drawing room, a warm smile immediately spreads across his face. He strides forward, shaking Mr. Webb's hand firmly, his tone laced with apology. "Webb, I'm so sorry for keeping you and your wife waiting," he says, his voice hoarse with tiredness. There was a problem at the factory. The workers, worried about being laid off, gathered to protest again, confronting the management for a long time. It delayed me, and I couldn't get back earlier to accompany you. Mr. Webb pats him on the shoulder, his tone understanding. "I heard about it. The strike at the Eastern Textile Mill has had a big impact. Workers in many factories are restless, and yours has been affected too. Our factory has also been uneasy lately, with workers complaining constantly. I was just about to discuss countermeasures with you, how to calm the workers' emotions while ensuring the factory operates normally." The two exchange a glance, seeing helplessness and tiredness in each other's eyes. They walk to the sofa nearby, sitting down to discuss factory matters in low, serious voices, occasional sighs escaping them. You and Mrs. Webb continue chatting about daily life, moving from the children's education to the latest fashion trends, from church services to neighborhood gossip, the atmosphere gradually lightening again. Mrs. Webb tells you that she has recently joined a charitable organization, providing food, clothing, and books to the children of working-class families, helping those poor children escape hunger and receive a basic education. Her words stir something within you, and you also have the idea of joining, wanting to do your bit for those suffering children, and to ease the guilt you feel for the working class. The afternoon sun slants westward, casting dappled light on the Persian carpet through the window. As time passes, the light stretches longer, losing its earlier warmth. The embers in the fireplace fade, their flickering glow dimming, and the temperature in the drawing room drops slowly. Alice enters timely with a pair of fire tongs, carefully adding more firewood to the fireplace. The flames rekindle, spreading warmth throughout the room once more. She picks up the teapot, refilling everyone's cups. By this time, most of the pastries on the table are gone. Only a few scones and fruit tarts remain, and the tin of Darjeeling is nearly empty. A faint aroma of tea and pastries lingers in the air. Mr. Webb checks his pocket watch, a sophisticated piece, a gift from his promotion to engineer. After glancing at the time, he stands up slowly. It's getting late, and the sun is almost setting. We should take our leave now. Thank you for your hospitality this afternoon. You and your husband hurry to persuade them to stay. Won't you stay a little longer? Have another cup of tea, and leave when it gets darker. No, thank you. We have things to take care of at home, and the children are waiting for us, Mrs. Webb says with a smile, straightening her bonnet and dress. Let's meet again soon. Come to our house for tea. I'll ask the cook to prepare pastries, and we can chat properly, letting the children play together too. You nod, agreeing with a smile, and walk them to the door with your husband. Thomas has already prepared the carriage, the coachman standing respectfully by the side. After waving goodbye to you, Mr. and Mrs. Webb board the carriage. The coachman flicks his whip gently, and the carriage moves forward slowly, the sound of hooves clattering on the cobblestones fading into the distance, eventually disappearing into the thick fog at the corner, leaving only a faint smell of horse dung. You and your husband walk back to the drawing room side by side, looking at the messy teacups, saucers, and leftover pastries on the round table. A sense of indescribable tiredness washes over you. Your husband steps forward, embracing you gently from behind, his chin resting on your shoulder, his tone filled with apology. You've worked so hard today, preparing for the tea, entertaining the guests. I was so caught up in the factory's troubles that I couldn't accompany you and the Webbs properly, making you worry too. I don't blame you, you say, leaning into his arms, feeling his warmth and steady heartbeat, the tiredness fading slightly. I know how hard it is for you, struggling to keep the factory running, racking your brain for profits and development, while worrying about the workers' livelihoods, tormented by your conscience. But I'm really worried. As these conflicts grow more intense, I fear something worse will happen, affecting our lives, endangering the children. Your husband sighs softly, holding you tighter, his tone filled with deep helplessness. I worry too, but this is the trend of the times. The tide of the Industrial Revolution rolls forward, and we can't stop it. All I can do is try to balance the factory's profits with the workers' wages, fighting for some compensation for those laid off, ensuring they have enough to eat, so they don't end up destitute. As for the future, we can only take it one step at a time, doing our best and leaving the rest to fate. He pauses, his tone softening as he strokes your hair gently. Let's put these troubles aside. Where are the children? I haven't seen them in a while. I want to check on them. They're asleep upstairs, you say with a smile, taking his hand and walking slowly up the stairs. Elizabeth was so engrossed in painting that she fell asleep at her desk. William played with his miniature steam locomotive until he was exhausted, then finally went to bed. The wooden handrail of the stairs, worn smooth by years of touch, glows warmly. Hanging on the wall are the children's paintings from different periods, from childish scribbles to more formed sketches, each recording their growth, filled with innocence and warmth. You push open the children's bedroom door gently. The room is quiet, only the sound of their steady breathing filling the air. Elizabeth lies on the bed, a sweet smile on her small face, her lips slightly curved, as if dreaming a beautiful dream. Her beloved paintbrushes and paper rest beside her pillow. William clutches his miniature steam locomotive tightly, his brows furrowed slightly, as if he's still tinkering with his favorite toy in his sleep. You and your husband exchange a smile, closing the door softly and pausing in the corridor, looking out at the thickening fog, which shrouds the entire neighborhood like a thin veil. The distant rumble of factories drifts over, faint and hazy. A mix of emotions surges within you, warmth and peace from your family, and worry about the turbulent times. This afternoon tea, seemingly a leisurely and pleasant social ritual, filled with refinement and warmth, bears the marks of the era everywhere. The bone china tea set, Indian Darjeeling, Caribbean sugar, Chinese silk. These seemingly ordinary items all embody the tide of the Industrial Revolution and the expansion of overseas colonialism, direct fruits of the era's privileges. The servants' toiling figures, news of factory strikes, rumors of colonial conflicts. These constantly remind you that the era is rife with sharp contradictions and drastic changes. You and your family are like a small boat adrift in the turbulent tide of the times, enjoying the comfortable life brought by progress, yet forced to endure the pains and unease of change, struggling to move forward between prosperity and suffering. By now, Alice and Martha have begun tidying the drawing room. The soft clink of tea sets, the rustle of sweeping the carpet, the crackle of burning firewood, mingling with the children's steady breathing upstairs, weaving a plain yet true picture of middle-class family life. You know that when the sun rises tomorrow, everything will return to normal. Your husband will get up early and head to the factory, continuing to struggle with the workers and profits. Alice and Martha will wake up on time, starting their day's work, cleaning, preparing meals, taking care of the children. You will manage the household, maintain social contacts, preparing for the next afternoon tea or dinner party, and the tide of the times will continue to roll forward, sweeping everyone along toward an unknown future. No one knows if the path ahead is bright or dark. At this moment, the fog in London grows thicker, like a vast net covering neighborhoods, factories, and mansions, as if trying to hide the era's noise and contradictions, its prosperity and suffering. That afternoon tea, filled with details and warmth, is like a small seal, etched deeply into the time of 19th century London. It witnesses the daily life and warm moments of middle-class families, as well as the vigorous development and painful struggles of an era, holding the complexity of human nature and the weight of history. Now, let us turn back time to the preparations for the afternoon tea, savoring the overlooked details and hidden thoughts. As you select the tea set and arrange the furnishings in the drawing room, Alice stands quietly in the corner, secretly admiring the bone china cup in your hand. That set of Wedgwood bone china is a dream beyond her reach. After sending most of her monthly wage back to her family in the countryside to buy medicine for her mother, she has barely enough left to buy the cheapest earthenware cups at the market, crude, fragile, and utterly lacking in beauty. Meanwhile, as Martha busies herself making pastries in the kitchen, her thoughts linger on her younger brother working in the textile mill. Her fingers move mechanically as she kneads the dough, pausing from time to glance out the window with worry, fearing to hear news of his injury, anxious whether he will survive the strike unharmed, whether he will receive his wages this month to support himself and their elderly parents. These servants' thoughts, like undercurrents hidden beneath the afternoon tea, go unnoticed by their masters, yet exist vividly, a stark contrast to the master's leisure. As your husband busies himself at the factory, he faces an excruciating dilemma. The new steam-powered looms have arrived, lined up neatly in the corner of the workshop, glinting with metallic luster, as if heralding a new era of production. Once installed, tested, and put into use, they will greatly increase efficiency, bringing substantial profits to the factory and a more comfortable life to your family. But he knows clearly that at least 50 workers will lose their jobs. Among them, an elderly worker with graying hair, who has toiled at the factory for 20 years, aging from a young man to a gray-haired elder. He has 3 young children and a paralyzed wife at home, the entire family relying on his wages. Losing his job would plunge the family into despair instantly. Your husband stares at the list of workers, reading it over and over, unable to make up his mind, torn between profit and conscience. This is the real reason he came home late today, not merely because of the workers' protest. The pride in Mr. Webb's voice when talking about the colonies is built on the blood and tears of countless colonial laborers. His friend, holding an administrative position in the Indian colonial government, does not hesitate to use force to plunder local cotton resources, burning the natives' homes, forcing them to work on plantations, making them toil long hours under the scorching sun, barely fed and clothed. Any resistance is met with cruel punishment. Flogging and imprisonment are common. The high-quality cotton grown by the natives day and night is shipped to Britain in a steady stream, turned into cloth in factories, into clothes worn by middle-class families, into the trophies Mr. Webb speaks of. All this prosperity is built on the suffering of colonial peoples. Though Mrs. Webb feels compassion for their plight, joining a charitable organization to atone, her kindness is ultimately too meager, able to help only a few, unable to fundamentally change the nature of colonial plunder, unable to save those trapped in suffering. When you and Mrs. Webb talk about the children's education, it reflects the anxiety and unease of middle-class families about class solidification. In 19th century London, class divisions were extremely rigid, almost insurmountable. Most working-class children were forced to work in factories from an early age, struggling to survive in harsh conditions, rarely having the chance to rise, trapped in the lower class for life. For middle-class children, however, a strict education from childhood is a must, learning not only etiquette, languages, mathematics, and science, but also art and music, cultivating elegance and a wide range of interests. All this prepares them to enter high society or take up decent jobs, with no room for slacking off. You hire a professional painting teacher for Elizabeth, a mathematics and mechanics teacher for William, hoping they will master more skills, stand firm in future fierce competition, maintain their current class, and even climb higher. But you also know that even so, they will face cruel competition and the pressure of era changes in the future. Uncertainty looms ahead. A forgotten incident during the afternoon tea reveals the class divide between masters and servants. As Alice refills Mr. Webb's cup, exhausted from days of overwork, her arm trembles slightly. She loses her grip, and a little boiling tea spills out, leaving a faint brown stain on Mr. Webb's expensive black tailcoat. Alice's face turns ashen instantly, her body shaking violently, the teapot nearly slipping from her hands. She quickly puts down the teapot, bowing repeatedly, her voice trembling with tears, fearing dismissal, losing the only means of supporting herself. Though Mr. Webb waves his hand casually, saying it's fine, a flash of obvious displeasure crosses his eyes. He pats the tea stain on his sleeve unconsciously, his tone turning cold. Sensing Alice's panic and Mr. Webb's dissatisfaction, you quickly diffuse the tension with a smile, saying it's nothing, just a little tea, easy to clean, then telling Alice to fetch a clean cloth. This trivial incident reflects the stark class differences of the time. A single small mistake by a servant could cost them their livelihood, while masters could easily forgive or punish them at will. This unequal relationship was an unchangeable reality of the era. As she prepares the pastries, Martha deliberately sets aside the most exquisite piece of chocolate cake, placing it carefully in a tin, reserved specially for the children. She knows that chocolate is an extremely expensive ingredient in those days, a rare treat for the children, so she decorates this cake extra delicately, piping small cream flowers on top and adding a fresh blueberry as a garnish. When the children wake up, seeing this exquisite chocolate cake, their eyes light up with surprise. They hold it gently, taking small bites, their faces filled with satisfaction and joy, as if savoring the most delicious food in the world. Their innocence and happiness stand in sharp contrast to the cruelty of the era and the rigidity of class, strengthening your resolve to protect your family, to safeguard the children's innocence, to let them have more warmth and joy in this turbulent time. In the evening, following your instructions, Thomas carefully packs the leftover pastries into a clean wooden box and delivers them to the elderly woman next door. Her husband, once a factory worker, died in a machine accident, leaving her without a source of income. She survives on a meager pension, living in dire straits. You often ask Thomas to send her food, clothing, and money out of kindness and to ease the guilt you feel for the working class, seeking a little consolation while enjoying a comfortable life. When the elderly woman takes the pastry box, her hands shake violently, tears of gratitude filling her eyes. She holds Thomas's hand, thanking him repeatedly, muttering, "Madam is such a kind person." The scene etches itself deeply in your mind, making you acutely aware that in an era of stark wealth inequality, a small act of kindness brings immense warmth to the underclass, yet also making you more keenly aware of the era's injustice. As night falls, gas lamps light up the streets of London, their dim yellow glow flickering in the fog like faint stars, barely illuminating the hurried footsteps of passers-by. The clatter of factory machines fades, and exhausted workers pour out of the factory gates, walking home in small groups, their figures appearing thin and fragile in the fog. You stand by the window, looking out at the night scene, your thoughts wandering. The afternoon tea is over, the liveliness and warmth fading, yet the story of the era continues. The Industrial Revolution rages on, new machines emerging constantly, factories expanding, overseas colonialism advances, Britain's territory growing, while colonial peoples' resistance never ceases. Class conflicts intensify, waves of worker strikes rising one after another, the gap between rich and poor widening. You and your family will continue to write your own life story against this complex and turbulent backdrop, struggling forward between prosperity and suffering, hope and despair. You turn back to the room. Your husband, already washed and changed into comfortable pajamas, sits on the bed reading. The children, after dinner with Martha's company, have fallen asleep again, satisfied smiles on their faces. Alice and Martha have cleaned the drawing room, the tea sets neatly arranged, the tables and chairs back in place, as if the afternoon's liveliness and noise never happened. Only the faint aroma of tea and pastries lingers in the air, a reminder that the afternoon tea, filled with details, emotions, and era marks, truly happened, holding the warmth of the family and the weight of the times. In this magnificent yet contradictory 19th century, London witnessed countless changes and struggles. The rise of the Industrial Revolution, the expansion of overseas colonialism, the intensification of class conflicts. The middle-class afternoon tea is like a small window through which we can see the various aspects of life at that time. The master's leisure and anxiety, the servant's toil and hopes, the children's innocence and ignorance. We can feel the pulse and temperature of the era, the suffering behind prosperity, the price of progress. Those exquisite tea sets, delicious pastries, warm conversations. Behind them lie class differences, era conflicts, human complexity, the cruelty of colonial plunder, the pain of the Industrial Revolution, the struggle of the underclass. It is the interweaving of these elements that forms the most true and vivid picture of that era, carrying the weight and warmth of history. Time passes, a century gone. The thick fog of 19th century London has long lifted. The tide of the Industrial Revolution has become history, And the darkness of overseas colonialism has been sealed in the river of time, rarely mentioned again. Yet the emotions and stories carried by that afternoon tea, the era and humanity it reflects, still touch our hearts, making us feel the vividness and weight of history. It reminds us that every era has its own prosperity and struggles, every family its own warmth and anxiety, every individual helpless in the tide of the times. And the light and complexity of human nature always shine through time, never changing. Now, let us return to that afternoon, feeling the more delicate emotions and hidden stories. As you stroke the precious bone china tea set, a secret vanity lingers in your heart. This set is not only a gift of love from your husband, but also a symbol of pride in social circles. Last time at a tea party held by a noble lady, you were looked down upon and mocked by several noblewomen for using ordinary earthenware. Their eyes were filled with obvious disdain, their words flaunting. The scene hurt you deeply, lingering in your memory. So when your husband was promoted to factory manager, you immediately asked him to buy this set of Wedgwood bone china, determined to hold your head high in social occasions, gain respect and recognition, no longer subjected to contempt. This vanity, though unflattering, is a true reflection of middle-class families seeking recognition in tecracks between classes, yearning for the upper class and anxious about their own status. When Mrs. Webb talks about her charitable work, there is a hint of deliberation and vanity in her tone. Joining the charitable organization, she is motivated partly by kindness, compassion for the suffering of the underclass, and partly by a desire to enhance her social image, establishing a reputation as kind and caring in social circles. In 19th century London's social scene, participating in charity was an important way for middle-class ladies to demonstrate their virtue and status, earning them more respect and recognition, expanding their social networks. The reason Mrs. Webb tells you this specially is that she hopes you will join her, participating in activities together, not only expanding the scale of the charitable organization, but also increasing their social influence, making them more influential in social circles. This subtle social psychology was common among the middle class at that time, everyone carefully managing their image and social relationships. When your husband discusses factory matters with Mr. Webb, he deliberately hides some truths, harboring workplace suspicion and vigilance. He has secretly decided to install the new steam-powered looms, but has not yet figured out how to arrange for the laid-off workers, nor how to announce the news to the workers, fearing large-scale strikes and conflicts. He is vague with Mr. Webb partly because he worries that Mr. Webb will take the opportunity to poach the factory's technical talents, affecting normal operations, partly because he fears that if the news leaks, the workers will learn of the layoffs in advance, triggering unnecessary chaos and putting the factory at a disadvantage. This suspicion and vigilance in the workplace were normal among businessmen during the Industrial Revolution, everyone looking out for their own interests, carefully guarding their trade secrets and profits. As Alice cleans the tea sets, she secretly hides a small scone in her pocket when Martha is not looking. She wants to take it to her younger sister in the countryside, who is only 10 years old. Due to family poverty, the little girl has never tasted such delicious pastries, surviving on coarse bread and wild vegetables. Alice knows that this violates the master's rules. If discovered, she will surely be dismissed, losing her only means of livelihood. But she cannot bear to see her sister suffer, desperate to let her taste the goodness of the world. In the end, she plucks up the courage to hide the scone. This pure sisterly love, in the face of cruel reality, is extremely precious, hiding the helplessness and sorrow of the underclass. When making pastries, Martha deliberately uses less sugar, seemingly to save, but in reality, a silent protest against the slave trade. She once heard her father say that on Caribbean plantations, enslaved Africans lived a life worse than animals, arbitrarily beaten and exploited by slave owners, toiling day and night under the scorching sun, yet barely able to meet their basic needs. The sugar squeezed from their blood and sweat is indulgently enjoyed by nobles and the middle class in London, becoming a luxury to adorn life. Though only an ordinary cook, powerless to change this cruel reality, Martha can only express her dissatisfaction and protest in this small way, sympathizing with the suffering of enslaved people, silently denouncing the unjust era. In the evening, you receive a letter from your hometown, handwritten by your mother. The paper is rough, the handwriting crooked, yet filled with deep worry. The letter says that farmland in the countryside has been forcibly seized by factory owners to build new workshops. Your father and fellow villagers have lost their livelihoods, forced to work in factories, toiling day and night in harsh conditions, their health declining. Your mother worries about your father's health, fearing he cannot bear the grueling factory work, and worries about the family's livelihood, hoping you can send more money home to support them. Holding the letter, your fingers tremble slightly, guilt and helplessness flooding your heart. Though you can send some money to ease their difficulties temporarily, you cannot change their fate, losing their land, being forced to work in factories, unable to return to the peaceful pastoral life of the past. This is another tragedy brought by the Industrial Revolution. Countless farmers losing their land, reduced to the working class, dragged into the tide of industrial production, losing their former lives and dignity. Seeing your worried expression, your husband hurries over, takes the letter and reads it carefully. He then holds you gently in his arms, comforting you softly. Don't be too sad. I'll send more money home, so our parents don't have to worry about making ends meet. When things stabilize at the factory, we'll bring them to London to live. Though they can no longer live a pastoral life, at least they will have enough to eat and wear, no longer having to toil in the factory. You nod, leaning into his arms, feeling a little consoled, but you know clearly that your parents are used to the quiet and stable rural life, and may not adapt to the noise and fast pace of London. Moreover, as farmers without special skills, they can only take the lowest paying jobs in London, struggling to truly integrate into middle-class life, to gain true peace and dignity. At night, you lie in bed, unable to fall asleep for a long time, your mind wandering back to the events of the day. Martha's furrowed brows when speaking of her brother, Mr. Webb's proud words about colonial conquests, the faint stain on his tailcoat from Alice's trembling hands, and the rough letter paper from your mother, still carrying the smell of countryside soil. The fog's cold breath presses against the window panes, making a soft rustling sound, as if the era's sighs are lingering outside, refusing to fade. Beside you, your husband breathes steadily, his tired face softened in the dim moonlight filtering through the curtains. He, too, bears the weight of the times, trapped between ambition and conscience, profit and compassion. You turn gently, not daring to disturb his slumber, and gaze at the ceiling carved with simple patterns. The moonlight spills over the edge of the bed, painting a thin silver line on the floor, as if trying to bridge the gap between reality and fantasy. Your thoughts drift to your hometown, those lush green fields that once stretched as far as the eye could see, the gurgling brook that ran through the village, and your father's calloused hands tending to the crops at dawn. Now those fields are replaced by cold factory walls, the brook polluted by machine waste, and your father, once a proud farmer, is forced to bow before the roar of steam engines, his back bent by years of toil in the workshop. The pastoral idyll of your childhood has been shattered by the tide of the Industrial Revolution, leaving only fragmented memories to linger in your dreams. You think of Alice, the young maid who hides a scone for her sister, of Martha's silent protest in using less sugar, of the elderly neighbor shedding tears of gratitude over a box of leftover pastries. These small, fragile moments of kindness are like tiny flames in the darkness of the era, flickering weakly yet stubbornly. They remind you that beneath the rigid class divisions and cruel exploitation, there still beats the warmth of human nature, sisterly love, compassion for the suffering, and quiet resistance against injustice. Yet these flames are so fragile. One wrong move by Alice could cost her livelihood. Martha's silent protest changes nothing about the slave trade, and your acts of charity are merely a drop in the ocean for the countless poor. The distant hoot of a steam locomotive cuts through the silence of the night, echoing faintly in the fog, a harsh reminder that the machine age waits for no one. Tomorrow, the factories will roar to life again. Workers will stream into the workshops. Colonial ships will dock at the Thames, and the cycle of prosperity and suffering will continue. Your husband will return to the factory, facing the dilemma of layoffs and protests. You will manage the household, prepare for the next social gathering, and send money home to your parents. Alice and Martha will rise early, repeating their daily toil, their hopes and fears hidden behind deferential smiles. You reach out, gently touching your husband's hand, warm and solid, an anchor in the turbulent times. Together, you and your family are adrift in this era of upheaval, clinging to each other amid the storms of change. You know that no one can stop the wheel of history from turning, that the Industrial Revolution will continue to reshape the world, that colonialism will persist in its plunder until the weight of resistance crushes it, and that class conflicts will smolder until justice finds a way to prevail. Yet in this uncertainty, there is still hope. The laughter of the children, the warmth of family, the quiet kindness shared between strangers, and the unyielding spirit of those who struggle against oppression. The fog outside begins to lift slightly, as the first hints of dawn tinge the eastern sky with a pale pink. The moonlight fades, and the room gradually brightens, bringing with it the promise of a new day. A day filled with the same struggles and hopes, the same contradictions and warmth. You close your eyes, feeling the first rays of sunlight touch your cheek, and take a deep breath. Whatever the future holds, you will face it with your family, clinging to the warmth you have, cherishing the small kindnesses, and enduring the pains of the times. For this is the fate of those living in a world in transition, the price of progress, and the beauty of clinging to humanity amid chaos. As the first bird begins to chirp outside the window, your husband stirs slightly, opening his eyes to meet yours. There is no need for words. His gaze holds the same weariness, the same love, and the same quiet resolve. He reaches out, taking your hand in his and squeezes gently. Together, you face the new day, ready to navigate the turbulent tides of the 19th century, knowing that even in the darkest of times, the warmth of family and the light of human nature will guide you forward. The morning sun breaks through the dissipating fog, casting golden light over London. The city awakens. Factory chimneys belch smoke into the sky, carriages clatter along cobblestone streets, and the sound of church bells echoes across neighborhoods. The afternoon tea of yesterday has become a memory, but the stories it holds, the emotions it embodies, and the era it reflects will live on. They are woven into the fabric of history, a testament to the complexity of the human experience, prosperity and suffering, love and loss, progress and sacrifice. In the end, it is these ordinary moments, the clink of teacups, the warmth of a scone, the quiet conversation between friends, the love shared between family, that define a time and a people. Amid the grand sweep of history, it is the small human details that linger in our hearts, reminding us that every era is shaped not only by revolutions and empires, but by the countless individuals who live, love, struggle, and hope within it. And as time marches forward, these details become the threads that connect the past to the present, allowing us to feel the pulse of a bygone era and recognize the shared humanity that transcends time and place.